How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a
Yeah,
little early for me. Where are you at that you start at 6 in the morning, and that's a good thing.
I happen to be located in Italy,
Okay, there we go.
so it's actually 1 o'clock here.
Beautiful, beautiful.
There should be, I mean, the calendar actually goes late mostly. It runs until about 9 o'clock or so my time.
Well,
And
this
so
worked out fine.
it's okay.
Yes.
You're okay.
Yep.
So I have your intake form. I have your chart to my left. I have a sense of what you'd like to discuss, but would love to hear
Great.
it from you. And am otherwise entirely in your service.
Okay. Well, I don't know what. I saw you on channeling Eric,
Okay.
and I communicate with my dead significant other. Shortly after he passed away, he started talking to me. And so that's just been a crazy deal. So I don't, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? So I don't know. And so this was something he said, do this and see what it says.
So he told you to contact me
Right.
so that you could better understand him contacting you.
To kind of find more of my path. Because I feel like I should be doing more. I mean, if you're having constant contact with somebody from the other side.
Yeah. So I'll try to help you.
Okay.
So let's start with the foundational stuff. What is your significant partner? What was his name?
Scott Zalke.
Say it again.
Scott Zalke.
Scott. And what was Scott's birthday?
September 28th of 61.
Okay. And then when did Scott pass?
August 24th of 2018.
Okay. And how long after his passing did you hear from him?
It was like, well, at his funeral, a big drop of water came down on my cheek. And just like shortly right after he passed away, it's like I always felt this calmness. I never felt, I just always felt blessed about everything that was in our, that we had such a blessed time together. We spent 5 years together and everything was so beautiful and perfect.
How did he
Um,
pass?
he had a heart attack.
Wow.
Yeah, just, I mean, totally sudden, no symptoms, no signs, no nothing. And just, it was weird because that night he said he didn't feel well. And so I was staying up with him. And then it got to be about midnight. And I said, well, I'm going to go to bed if that's okay. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. No, he was like, I kind of have an upset stomach. And so he stayed up and I fell asleep. And then he never came to bed. And I woke up, which is odd for me not to wake up if he wasn't in bed. But I woke up late for work, he always woke me up for work. And then I knew, I'm just like, no, he's dead. He's outside. He's dead. And he was on the back step and had passed away.
Passed away on his own in the backyard.
Right.
And then how does he come to you now?
He's always with me. He's always talking to me all day, every day.
So is he talking to you like you hear me talking to you?
No, no, it's different. It's not like crazy talk because I went through that. I'm like, am I crazy? No, there's too many coincidences and stuff. I don't know. No, it's like an inner knowing, but it's a communication yet.
Because there's clairsentience, there's clairaudience, there's obviously clairvoyance. There's all these different types of communication with spirit. And depending
Right.
on where we are and what's intended for us, we experience it differently. And so one of the strongest forms of communication is literally clairaudience, where you are hearing voices, and if you could be schizophrenic and you're hearing voices within your own head, or you could truly be clairaudient where spirit is coming through. That's the most extraordinary and the rarest form. but a clairsentience, like a knowing of a presence, a feeling of a presence. Certainly if you're in a quiet, still state and you can receive thoughts and you can start to separate your own thoughts from the thoughts that are entering your mind, which become a very clear indication that you're receiving from another.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what it sounds like you're experiencing.
It is. I know it feels crazy, but no, it's a constant communication. And there's too many, I mean, there's a lot of paranormal stuff that goes on too.
Okay, that I was going to ask, because there's almost always other things accompanied with it. So do you want to share
I
some
mean,
of
like, I never come into the house and I look at the clock and it's always 11 minutes after. It's always 6:11, 7:11, you know, whatever. I wake up in the middle of the night, go to the bathroom, it's always something 11. I go to my car, I'm walking to my car, and all of a sudden my electric window will go down by itself, you know, and he goes, oh, I'm doing that. You know, I wake up, my computer wakes me up in the middle of the night, and it's playing like Beetlejuice, you know, the
yeah.
dance song. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, so for my computer to do music by itself is pretty common.
So Lynda, can you ask questions and then receive a direct response, or is it just a one-way kind of communication?
No, I can ask questions and receive responses.
So is he with you now?
Yeah, he's always with me.
But do you enjoy
And so
the feeling of him always being with you?
Yeah, it's comforting now, but it's been 2 years, right? At first it was odd because it was always everything I'm doing, you know, and he'd make comments about stuff that I'm doing. And he'd bring like my past in. He'd go, oh, that reminds me of the time when you were little and you did this, or this, or, you know, so he brings back a lot of memories kind of as validation of the time.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
And it is validating. It is validating because it's a confirmation that it's not you going crazy in the traditional sense. It's
right.
communication coming and then an example or an indication that somebody else is familiar with you and using little tools, however possible, to
So
make
it's like,
that clear to you.
yeah, and he knows like every little thing about me that I don't know myself, you know, a lot of those memories that I wouldn't remember.
Well, and also looking at the clock at 4:11, 5:11, 6:11, whatever it is, it's actually spirit, in this case, Scott, tweaking your consciousness to say it's the moment that he wants you to look at the clock. So you just happen to look at the clock, not realizing that you've been influenced to do so, and then seeing the 11, 11, 11 all the time. Just kind of reinforcing that it's his presence.
Right. Well, yeah, and too, and like listening to music, but I can feel him, like I can feel him dancing like inside of me too.
So
It's very intense and it's constant.
so what do you want?
Well, my understanding is we're twin flames, which I didn't really know anything about until after he passed. I mean, I'd heard about it, but I've never been into it. I've always felt that I could, you know, that I always had angels around me and always talk to them and stuff like that. So I don't know. I just want to see, is there's, you know, I'm curious if this is like divine intervention and what my chart shows.
Well, so the chart wouldn't, I'd have to have Scott's chart, we'd have to do the overlay.
Oh,
We'd
okay.
have to go back. We could even go back in time to the point of his passing and see what energy was dominant within his incarnation to try to explain why he passed. You can basically play the spiritual investigator and you can look at the energies created by two individuals incarnate together, coming together as in a relationship. But that's actually not as important for this conversation. The astrology is secondary in the context of what we're discussing. You having a knowing, an understanding of what's exactly going on, that's hugely important. It's important for you, especially as a Virgo, to understand what's happening. And then you have your subconscious sitting in Pisces. So the feelings and the emotions around it have to play into the discussion. But in general, for you to understand why Scott's coming through and then to ultimately have an understanding of what Scott is experiencing, and you can kind of position that against what you're experiencing and then make a decision, because it is your free will. And you can come forth with declarations that would actively go ahead and situate your relationship going forward. And what I
What
mean
does
by
that mean?
that is, so there are entities that would impose themselves, and then there are incredibly loving beings that desire to be in your company. And in this case, spiritually, Scott feels so drawn and connected to you, and you likewise are emanating a vibration that he's continued to feel drawn and held by, that you're in a position to say, I actually like what is going on and I'd like it to persist. Or you want to allow your human incarnation to continue unabated without the spiritual energy in the space to potentially free you up to go down the path of another romantic endeavor or other qualities in your life that would otherwise be influenced by having Scott there. Like this is part of the decision making. Scott would never want to be an imposition. He's loving, he's protecting you, he's spending time with you, he's staying close to you. My sense is that the heart attack was not a planned departure. And insofar as he was caught by surprise, a lot of spirits, when something happens unexpectedly, they actually wind up in remaining in this dimension because they're feeling as if there's still some energetic attachment that is stronger than the call to return to spirit. Meaning the call to return to the spirit realm. And by virtue of Scott having free will also, his guides might say, hey, whenever you're ready, it's time to come back. And he'll say, okay, when I'm ready. And he's allowed to stay as long as he wants. And so if Scott is evolved enough as a spirit, he can start to, anything electric is easy. Adjusting the windows, turning on and off, like that stuff is, because it's because his energy can influence that energy quite easily. And then because you guys have such a powerful connection, he's able to drop thoughts into your consciousness. And you're probably able to feel if you get the tingles, if you get sensations. And so we can start to frame this. We can give you a better understanding. It's been almost 2 years now. You're coming up to your anniversary of his passing. So it's now become familiar, this pattern. This pattern could quite potentially stay with you until you depart. You could be here another 30 or 40 years if you live to be a lovely old lady. And Scott could literally be with you the whole time. It's very possible, but at the same time, you could have very honest conversations with Scott and say, is this really what's best for the both of us at this point? Maybe we just wait to reunite in spirit when I arrive there, and otherwise I continue on my human incarnation on the path that is best suited for this physical vessel.
Interesting.
So
like an earthbound spirit?
Pardon me? He's an earthbound spirit from what you're describing.
Really?
From what you're describing, he didn't leave. He was with you at his funeral, and he saw your emotional distress, and he felt a remarkable attachment to you. And the love was such a strong bond after spending 5 years in beautiful, blissed relationship, which was a pre-incarnation choice to spend his life with you. The heart attack, my guess is, was an unexpected interference with that pre-incarnation choice. So now he's going forth with the plans to spend his life with you, only doing so as spirit.
Interesting.
That's the sense that I'm getting. And so he wanted you to talk to me so that we could start to broaden, expand your consciousness to understand a little bit more of the metaphysical framework of what's unfolding, and then put you in a healthy position to really just navigate the feelings that you're having, the thoughts that you're having, communicate with Scott, and let you guys decide what's best.
Okay. So where do we go from here then?
So there's a handful of things. There's a handful of things to consider. So Scott exists in a timeless realm, right? Scott exists in a timeless realm, and when Scott is ready, he'll pick his next incarnation. He'll pick his next body. He'll pick the city in which he's going to be born, the family that he's going to be born to. And it's when he's ready, 20, 30, 40 years. It's hard to predict. And the gap seems to be getting smaller because the veil is thinning and the spiritual energy of the planet is actually intensifying. So spirits are coming back more quickly. But when Scott is ready, he'll plan his next incarnation. If his next incarnation involves you, he's happy to wait for you. Oftentimes, spirit will actually plan out multiple incarnations in advance, and one leads to the next to the next. But you have to understand that his spirit is growing the same way your spirit is growing. You had a pre-incarnation plan prior to arriving. And so you chose the body that you're in, you chose the family that you were born to, you chose your parents, right? There were some struggles in your childhood, the lack of an emotional attachment to your mother, like not necessarily feeling her love. Like, yeah, those are things that you chose because they're indicated clearly in your chart. And that was meant to create an atmosphere that you would grow through and eventually allow you, when the time was right, to connect profoundly with Scott. And insofar as Scott was intended to be part of your incarnation path, with Scott physically not here, he's doing what he can to continue the pre-incarnation decision to be by your side, only he happens to be doing it while discarnate, while not in the physical body.
Right.
And so you can choose to maintain that relationship as it is, or you can choose to let Scott go on his way, in which case it's known as an inflection point. Your life took an unexpected turn, and now you end up creating a different trajectory, which can still have lessons and growth and so on and so forth. It's less likely that you'll find a love as profound as the one that you share with Scott, because it's less, because if his heart attack wasn't pre-planned, then there wouldn't be a redundancy for you to find somebody else so easily afterwards. In which case it might take some time, but you could still very much find yourself in a loving relationship. And you could find yourself otherwise moving down a different trajectory of growth and awareness and everything else that comes with that journey. Alternatively, you and Scott could continue to journey into this space, which is a spiritual space where you continue to grow closer and closer to Scott, and yet you're growing closer to Scott's spirit, and all the while you're growing more attached to an alternative lifestyle, which has a profoundly spiritual underpinning.
Okay. So, so how, I don't know. Yeah. Where do I go from there? I don't get it.
You start to tap into your feelings.
Right.
Start to tap into your feelings. When Scott comes through, how do you feel?
It's comfortable.
Yeah, it's comfortable. And here's the thing, Lynda, you don't have to choose now.
Mm.
You don't have to choose tomorrow. You don't have to, you can have this conversation with Scott. He's staying with you now because it's comfortable. He's staying with you now because you've continued to indicate that you like him being with you. But Scott wants the best for you.
Right.
More than anything, wants the best for you. So if the moment comes that him being with you is no longer the best for you, then Scott will honor that and let you continue without him.
Huh, okay.
Yeah,
So it's a matter of me just kind of changing my thought process.
Yeah, you can make declarations. You can
Dependence.
start to communicate with him. You can, and you don't have to make it. It's not like a grand. It's not, it's not Moses splitting the Dead Sea. Like it's not some big event. It's you're an earth sign. And you have a vulnerable subconscious. It's about feeling it through, talking it through, experiencing it, sitting and meditating on it. Working it over time. You don't have to pull off the Band-Aid all at once. You just kind of step by step make your way through it.
Mhm.
It would be
Okay.
akin, instead of Scott having a heart attack, it'd be akin to him having like a chronic illness that's preparing you for an eventuality of his departure, just without the sadness in this case. The sadness has already been experienced. So now it's really just adjusting the human mind to grow more comfortable with the prospect of him not being with you.
Mhm.
So what ends up happening, what do you think? What are you thinking?
I'm talking to him. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Is that the truth?
You're talking to him.
Yeah,
And is he confirming what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah. He said, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the truth, and that's what I wanted you to know. So that's why we're doing this, he said. Mhm. Yeah, he said, listen to what he has to say, and we can talk from there.
And you will.
Mm-hmm.
And you can always reach back out to me and I'll support you in your next steps.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. So he's earthbound?
He's by choice. By choice. By choice. Just as you're emanating a vibration. So he originally felt your profound sadness. And so he desired to stay close to you to comfort you. It's very normal. But then your sadness wasn't abating, right? And your soul path was not intended for you to be alone. And that's my guess. I know the first is likely true, being your sadness was pervasive. I don't know definitively what his soul path was, although my sense is because he had no awareness of an unexpected sudden heart attack, it wasn't an indication, and it doesn't sound like there is any value from a spiritual growth standpoint. So my sense is that Scott would confirm that it was an unexpected event within the incarnation cycle that ended up interrupting the path that the both of you had set prior to starting your lives.
Okay.
In which case, he stayed to comfort you. And then as he remained to comfort you, you became, as you never really detached, you continued to emanate a vibration of light and love and desire that he continued to fill. And insofar as it was serving you and it was helpful for you, and he has this profound desire to care for you, he just decided to stay. It's okay. Like, it's okay. It's very
Uh-huh.
it's very special. It's very special. It feels foreign to you because it's so different from the world that you exist in,
Right.
the practical world that you can feel. But this is just a temporary. This is a monkey suit. This is a temporary physical vessel that your eternal
Yeah.
self is using for its journey. Scott's returned to his eternal self, and he's simply choosing to stay close in this dimension, this physical realm, so that he can remain close to you.
Wouldn't he be better off not in this realm?
Yeah, but he planned on being in this realm for this incarnation anyways. And to be frank, if the two of you are twin flames, and we can explore the term the twin flames, but if the two of you
Right.
are meant to journey together, for him to hang out here for a bit longer, it's inconsequential when he's in a realm without time. There's no consequence of time.
Uh,
You you
okay.
you want me to give you a bit of framework around it?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know that term Machiavellian, or the Machiavelli, the prince, that famous work of literature.
Right.
The ends justify the means. Do whatever you have to get what you need. And so it was
Uh-huh.
actually written about it was written about a noble in Italy, like 500-600 years ago, who had enemies, and he tricked his enemies into thinking that he was going to make peace with them, and then when they came, he killed them all. And then he like blamed one of his other sergeants and he got through it. And basically it was whatever you have to do to maintain your power, you know, as long as you're successful in those endeavors, the ends justify the means. It was really a brutal slaughtering of a few hundred people that were completely caught by surprise. 500 years later, most of those souls were still stuck on those grounds. They had never left. And they had never left because they were so surprised and they were young souls. They didn't know necessarily which way to go. And the shock of what had been experienced was so pervasive that they just stayed. And they literally had stayed. Many of them are still there 500 years later, right? To them, when they're ready and they figure it out, maybe it's 5,000 years from now, eventually they'll drift back up and be called to the light and realize that that's the direction to go in. But they're existing in a timeless space. They don't feel time. That concept of time is part of this dimension. It's not part of their dimension. So for Scott to stay with you as part of your space, he's not in a rush necessarily to go elsewhere. There's not a consequence to him to hanging out with you for the next 30 years, if that's what you guys desire.
Huh.
And all the while, it sounds like Scott is evolved enough as a spiritual being that he is very clear in his intention to stay with you. And he's very deliberate in his efforts to communicate with you so that he can maintain your relationship as best as he can.
And he does, yeah. I mean, that's why I say to him too, I'm like, seriously, you know, I could never date or anything, you know? He's like, yeah, I know. It's just like he's out. It's just like having a spouse here without the body.
Well, that's just it. And so on the one hand, it's beautiful because you maintain the emotional attachment and the companionship.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, it is a limiting energy. It would be hard for you to move on even if Scott weren't there, but eventually you could, as long as Scott is there. It's really under the pretense that you have no desire to move on,
Mm-hmm.
because it wouldn't be possible.
Right, right. Which doesn't feel like an issue, I guess. Either way.
Either way.
All right.
And so if you were to communicate like as you do, like very specifically, you're getting very specific responses.
Right.
So can you ask Scott if the dynamic that exists between you, the level of communication that is there now, would always be at this level, or if there's the ability to evolve further and to have even greater communication with him?
Okay. No, and that's what he said. That's why I showed you, because when he first passed away, I was able to talk to other spirits. I was able to channel other people. I had more, what I felt, more gifts. And then they started to kind of, he took them away, I feel like.
So did you have those gifts before he passed?
No. So then after he passed, you know, within like 6 months or so, then I was able to. It more intuitive too, and just able to, you know, like with my kids and stuff, you know, I was just always spot on with everything. Like when I call them, perfect timing. I was just going to call you, or, you know, for gifts or whatever, you know, I say we'd be in the store, go, you know, he'd point my eye towards something, he'd go, there you go, that's it. And it'd be like the perfect gift. Or, you know, there's that shirt, get perfect shirt for you. That would look great on you. And so it was always like that. And then it kind of went away. And he's saying, that's what I want you to see. I want you to see that that's what you could have if we continue, but I want you to know that we don't have to continue.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at.
Okay.
That's what I was getting at, is that it sounds like he's willing to be a very strong conduit for you to start to access more completely into the spirit realm.
That's what, yeah, he goes, that's what I wanted you to do, but I don't know that you felt comfortable doing that.
It takes some time. takes some time. You have to work through the implications of it, but it can also be the most rewarding thing you can imagine.
Right?
It can be unbelievable. And you have the most loving companion looking out over you.
Right? Right?
You have somebody actively from the other side caring for your needs,
Uh-huh.
protecting you on the journey, somebody you can communicate with.
Uh-huh.
You'll make the decision. If, here's the way I look at it. This is kind of my thought around it, right? There's never a commitment in the context of what we're talking about that you can't get out of. There's an emotional consequence of starting and stopping something, or relationship ending, or what have you. But if you decide that you want to try to go down that path and it's not working for you, and you need to take a month or 2 months off, or just give it up altogether, you can do that.
Interesting. No, I do want to go down that path. Yeah.
You have to go down with very clear spiritual understanding and intention.
That's what he's just saying to me.
You have to understand that you are now breaking from the practical realm that you've probably spent a lot of your life mastering.
Right.
And you're moving into the spiritual or the metaphysical realm with a different set of rules and a different set of metrics for what really defines success.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he says, and that's where I'm lacking, that I don't have the knowledge for that, and that I have to get more involved in that.
It's not, you're in good company. Very few people have that knowledge. It's not like you take a university course on,
right?
It's not everyday knowledge. And actually, it's even worse because it's so distorted in pop culture and the media, the belief around what you're experiencing, the construct for how it all works. It's completely flawed.
Right.
Actually, remember that movie Ghost years ago?
Yes.
So it's actually fairly accurate. Some of it is fairly accurate. The biggest single discrepancy is that if a spirit comes into your body, so that literally they're speaking through you, right? It can be exhausting for you. In the movie, it was Patrick Swayze that wound up exhausted, and Whoopi Goldberg was fine running all over the place. In reality, it's the opposite.
Opposite way. Yeah, it is. No, that's true. And he was just saying that I should watch it again. And so I started watching some clips of it. Oh man, it really gets me. I don't know if I could watch the whole thing again, but yeah, it's exactly like that.
I can give you a whole bunch of discrepancies. So in the movie, Patrick Swayze learns how to knock over newspapers and push the bottle cap or whatever he's doing.
The penny and stuff, yeah.
In actuality, the spirit's been working on that for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years. They don't just learn it in the subway, because they died a few weeks ago. It's the indication of the advancement of the spirit to be able to do that. So when we're speaking to Scott and he's able to influence your home or draw your attention to the clock, or certainly continue to drop thoughts so seamlessly into your consciousness, it speaks to his advancement. He's fairly far along. And actually, if Scott wanted to, he could show you what color he is in the spirit realm, and we could get a sense of his progress. And we can also talk through with him what it is that he hopes to achieve longer term, with you becoming a conduit to receive more information from spirit.
He said he's red.
All red?
Red and yellow?
Okay. And who does he want you to speak to?
I'm not sure what you mean by that, he said.
So does he just want you to speak to him, or is he intending on bringing other people into your space so that you can hear other spirits?
Oh, no. So he's intending to speak through him.
to speak through him, that you would be a conduit for him to speak, or that you would just continue to speak to him and he would bring in information?
He would bring in the information.
And does he have information that he desires to communicate to you? Or is it,
Nothing he goes, nothing in particular.
it's just in general for you to be available? We could ask him virtually any question. He could go ahead and share it with us.
I'd be willing to do that. He said yes.
Yeah, you're a channel. You're what's known as you're a very broadband channel because you're fully conscious. You can ask
Right.
him, if this environment where you're fully conscious and communicating is the ideal form for you to communicate, or if you would be better off even as a channel, which is like in a quiet state, perhaps in a hypnotic or meditative state, where the information is more flowing through you without engaging your human mind. That you could evolve to, and then Scott could come through even more unabated.
That's what he said. And he goes, that's why I work, because you have so many thoughts going through your head all the time.
And so it's hard for you to tell which are your thoughts and which are his thoughts, and then your thoughts interfere with his thoughts, and you get a lot of static on the line.
And he goes, and that's why I keep telling you, I want you to meditate more, and I want you to take it more seriously, because you try to meditate, but you don't take it as seriously as you should.
Yeah, and so that's
I want you to spend more time every day meditating.
But what kind of do you know meditation? Have you gone deep into meditation? Does he have a type of meditation that he wants? Here you go. We have to put together like a course on,
right?
On this.
He goes, you know meditation, but he goes, I want you to go deeper into that meditation and for longer periods of time.
That's it, because you have to start to really put separation between the human mind and all the chatter, which is the noise on the surface. You have to think of it as like the waves on the top of the ocean. The ocean goes incredibly deep, but if you're just sitting on the top of it, your boat is getting thrown all over the place. You have to quiet the noise, and then you can start to move deeper and deeper into the depths of the human mind, which is really to recognize that the human mind is the chatterbox, and then the true self is waiting for you when you quiet the chatterbox. And that's what meditation, if you can go, it's not just meditation, it's about cutting out all the endless stimulation throughout the day. It's about finding real spaciousness in your schedule where you can be in a quiet, calm space. You know, it's not like every moment of the day having something that fills your mind with more thoughts. You know, it's going to the park and just sitting quietly in the park. It's getting into a really nice conversation with one other person and being totally and utterly focused on just that person. You know, like as if every word that they said was meaningful to you and you really wanted to be present for it. It's that kind of energy that allows you to start to focus. And over time, the human mind is a choice. It's not the captain of the ship any longer. It's simply a passenger, and the true self is now in charge. And if you're able to get to that state, and even if you can't, just by virtue of attempting it, you'll start to see a little bit of separation. But if you're trying to move into that more spiritual space, by virtue of the effort coming into the fray, Scott's voice will get louder, his intention will get clearer, the complexity of what he can talk about will increase, and you'll start to feel him even more.
Interesting. Yeah. Yes, that's what I want you to hear.
It's good. Sounds like a really good guy. So you guys have a profound energetic or loving bond. That already puts you out way out ahead. It's not some spirit that you don't know who it is coming through. It's somebody who's incredibly familiar to you that you can trust. That's an amazing starting point.
Yeah. Well, he said, and he goes, and I know everything about you. I know every little detail about you, all your nuances, everything.
Yeah. And so he can care for you.
Mm-hmm.
If things aren't going right, he would pull back or he would soothe you. If things are going great, he would know where the limits lie.
Huh.
You can ask him, how many lives have you had together prior to this one?
I ask him that, and he just goes several. We've had several lives together, several.
Okay, so see if he can give you a more specific answer. Actually, ask him, how many lives together have you had on this planet, just for clarity?
He's saying if you're gonna make, I don't want to give you a number, but if I had to give you a number, I would give you a 7
7.
or 8
Yeah,
or 8.
7 or 8 lives. So on average, the typical incarnation cycle, the life expectancy has moved up over the last 100, 200 years. But for a long time, the life expectancy was 30, 40 years. And then
Right?
you typically have in the neighborhood of 50 or 60 years in between incarnations where you would reflect and integrate and heal. And then you'd come back and start the next one. It's unlikely that you and he did 8 consecutive incarnations. You probably had one and tried something else with somebody else, then came back. Sometimes you may have been romantic partners. Sometimes you may have been brother and sister. If you're incredibly emotionally attached, then you may have always been romantic partners. But if it's 7 or 8 cycles, that means it spans 7 or 800 years. And by virtue of you not likely have incarnating consecutively, your relationship with Scott might date back 2,000 or 3,000 years on Earth. And so you could have had incarnations in ancient Egypt, in Greece, in the Middle East. You could have been in different settings and you'd spend time together, experience each other in different ways. And then the life would come to an end. You might do it elsewhere with somebody else for an incarnation or two, and then come back to Scott and try it again. And
Uh-huh.
even if you have done it consecutively with Scott, then you're still dating back somewhere before the dark ages, the 1200 time frame, maybe 1300, somewhere in that ballpark, which means in all likelihood it wasn't in North America, could have been in Europe, the Far East,
Hmm.
Middle East. And so I'm saying that if you get into these, there's familiarity that Scott has with you and your past incarnations. That familiarity is resident within you. It's just under the veil of forgetting while you're in this physical body.
Uh-huh.
And so he can bring some of that into your consciousness. He has to be careful not to bring too much of it because he doesn't want to open up your consciousness to start remembering past lives. Right? And so that's maybe why he's hesitant to give us a definitive number, because he'd also be hesitant to start sharing about the lives that you've had before and how they ended. And if there was grieving that would have carried over, it would create additional emotional weightiness in this incarnation.
Uh-huh.
Right? It's very easy for the human mind to start reliving experiences from past lives and not knowing, not being able to, the body and the nervous system can't decipher between an experience from this incarnation or a past incarnation, which is why that veil of forgetting is so important.
Right.
Right? And that's part of the risk, and Scott would be well aware of it, is that if he gets closer and closer to you, the veil between the two of you would thin so much that those 7 or 8 incarnations would start becoming more veiled. You'd start having flashbacks or memories, seeing yourself in different ways or feeling things from different incarnations.
Right.
And that is something you have to be careful of. It'd be interesting, but also it could start to interfere with this incarnation. There's a lot that goes into it.
Uh-huh.
He's aware. He knows he's aware of how to care for you. But you'd want to be curious, and then you'd want to ask him, where do we go from here? What are our next steps explicitly? I can work on meditation. I can make a commitment to do it every day for a minimum of 20 minutes. Scott, I can also commit to just putting more spaciousness in my schedule where there's just more time for me to be still and quiet and to hear you. And then you start to bring high vibrational foods into your body if you're not already doing that. So you avoid anything processed, anything of a lot of the low grade sugars, anything synthetic, all that is thrown out. You want to go on God's diet and eat mostly fruits and vegetables. If you're going to have meat, they have to be really, organic, grass-fed, clean meats. You just want to raise the vibration of the physical vessel clear the emotional mental state as much as possible and really orient yourself to be the ideal channel for him to come through. And then you'll look great in the process. You'll feel great. And then Scott will be even more
Right.
present with you. It's a win-win.
Well, and that's what he's been doing with organic foods and things like that. So totally changing my diet. That's
Yeah.
where we're
He doesn't
at
want
now.
any of the pesticides, herbicides,
Right.
steroids and hormones. All of that is low vibrational toxin that would impair his communication and deteriorate your physical vessel and your energetic body. It's important that people eat healthy regardless, but if you're trying to communicate with spirit, I listen to people and they have no spiritual practice. They're putting garbage in their body all day long. They're hyperstimulated and they're like, how come I can't make any spiritual progress? And I'm like, really?
Right. He goes, tell him that's where you're stuck at right now.
Which part
Because
of you?
he said that I think I want to make spiritual progress, but I'm not willing to do the hard things to stop drinking coffee, to stop eating the bad food.
Get
And
rid of
so this is the
it's
point where I have
it's
to make that commitment.
yeah, it's the diet thing. It does require discipline, but it doesn't require traditional dietary discipline of restriction. It requires you to do substitution. So if you're going to have an apple or a strawberry, you just have to make sure that it's organic or that it's at least locally grown. So it's not going through these big mega farms from the other side of the planet and getting covered in pesticides and shipped out for a week or two before it gets to you.
Right. Yep.
Right. Like, and so you can always just fill up your body with a lot of nutrition. You just have to make it high vibrational nutrition. The easiest way to do it is to simply ask yourself, am I on God's diet? Which is you look at the food before you put it in your body and you say, did God make this? Is this the product of nature's beauty and nature's bounty? And if it's no, you say, how far away from what nature intended is this food that I'm about to eat? So if you're about to eat like, a chocolate bar and a can of soda, you can be like, this is all man's creation. There's like nothing in here that I can even identify. If you can't identify everything on your plate, it's not God's diet. It's not the food that you want to be putting in your body. This is what I would do. If I was Lynda and I had this amazing opportunity to maintain a beautiful, what's that?
I know, right? That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, why? Yeah. Cool.
This is just what I would do, right? So
Mhm.
I'm advising you from my own journey, my perspective, my intellect. So you'll have to take it for what it is. It's nothing more than advice. But my advice and my intuition, which has been running through this conversation, and Scott somehow knew that I was the intuition that he wanted to be introduced into your consciousness.
Right.
Right. So we're just kind of, you got Scott and I basically on the same side in this conversation at this point. So what I would do is I would go for it. I would go for it. Everything that we're talking about is to make you healthier, and nothing that we're talking about is irreversible. So if you go on a beautifully clean diet and you learn to meditate and you quiet down the human mind and you connect more profoundly with Scott, and one day you wake up and you say, I want to eat shit food again. I want to be overstimulated and running all over the place, and I don't want to talk to Scott anymore. You can do that. But if you go down this path and you're like, wow, I feel amazing. Right. And for the first time, my mind's really, really quiet. And I feel a stillness, which is that peace and tranquility is beautiful. And then on top of it, you are actively receiving Scott and he is answering all of your questions, and you have a profound spiritual relationship that carries with you for years to come. And who knows what becomes of it? Like that's a gift afforded to very few. And as I mentioned, with the veil thinning, because the earth is moving to its next level of consciousness, Scott will be able to come through more strongly with every day, month, year that passes. It's easier for him to communicate with you as the planet moves through this transition. Yeah, there's an adjustment underway on Earth now. It's probably why he's able to communicate with you now as it is. It will make it even easier as the years go by.
He said this is part of our soul plan.
Okay, so then that's worth exploring. It was part of your soul plan for, so ask Scott, was it part of the soul plan for him to die suddenly of a heart attack, to then linger in spirit and to continue to communicate with you ongoing?
He's saying, yes, that's exactly right.
Well, that's even better. It negates my belief earlier that he died suddenly. It's actually much more profound that all you're doing now is stepping in. It's a beautiful. So he had asked him, did he have any awareness of the soul plan prior to his passing?
He said, absolutely, I did.
He knew about it while incarnate that this was the plan, or he obviously chose it prior to incarnation. He didn't give you an indication before passing that this was the likely outcome when he wasn't feeling well.
He said, okay, so he knew when he was alive, he knew he was going to die. And he knew he was going to die that night. Because actually, and he did. It's like he cleaned up everything of his and threw like his papers away and like these old stinky shoes that he had and stuff like that. Because I knew I was going to die. So I knew, and this is part of our plan, our soul plan, was that for me to die and to be able to communicate with you.
For what? To what end?
To grow our love.
Give me more, Scott. To grow your love, it's more profound to grow love with one of you in the physical body and one of you in spirit than it would be if you were both in the physical body.
Okay. So he goes, this is where I want you to meditate, Lynda, because you're not hearing what I'm saying. You're thinking because you feel embarrassed by some of the things that I'm saying. And so you're thinking and you're not listening to what I'm saying.
It's normal. It's totally normal. It'll take you some time, but it's totally normal. What's he trying to correct from what you just said?
It's for the collective. Tell him that it's to grow the love for the collective, twin flames. And
it's not for the two of you. He wants to bring forth greater awareness for all.
right.
You guys had a soul contract to expand the consciousness of the collective. And so you chose 5 blissful years together to form a very strong connection while incarnate, with the deliberate intention that he would leave and continue to communicate with you so that you could become the voice piece and he could continue to spread the word.
Right. That's exactly right. He said.
That's making perfect sense. Because,
and he said the 5 years too. I mean, were amazing, right? I mean, they were. The time that we spent, we were always together. When we weren't working, we were always together and always out in nature, hiking, walking, and the beautiful things that we saw while we were out. I mean, the beautiful sunsets and the weather and the animals and the things like that were just amazing. And I still see, he goes, and you still see those. You still see amazing things. I mean, like the pheasants that will just sit there in front of me, or the owl that will sit there in front of me while I take a million pictures of them in the middle of the daylight and stuff like that. Just the amazing nature.
you, Lynda, you didn't feel the love of your mother. Your mother was present, but did you not connect with her emotions? Did you not feel her loving?
No, I never really did. I mean, as we got older, I did.
Yeah, but as a child, you didn't feel, yeah. So that was a pre-incarnation plan also, to set you on a path where you could get familiar with a relationship that doesn't have the loving qualities that perhaps you might expect.
So what does that mean?
It means that, like, if this relationship this is an unconventional loving relationship, and
Mm-hmm.
Scott is fully present, but you can't hug him. It's almost like if your mother would hug you and you'd be like, I know she's got her arms around me, but I don't know that I feel her love. Right? It's just a placement that would indicate the presence of a loved one, but an unconventional, or in the case of a child, not feeling the love of the mother. In the case of what we're talking about here, it's like you can feel Scott's love without literally feeling Scott.
It's amazing love.
Yeah, it's the most profound love, but it's unconventional insofar as
Right?
he's with you without being physically with you. And with what you're saying and what Scott is saying, he's giving us an explanation which makes perfect sense. Because the two of you chose pre-incarnation to come together. You were able to connect with him relatively later in life, right? So I'm assuming there were no kids in the mix.
No,
Yeah, and so keep in mind that this is,
just him and I all the time.
well, that's it. Because when he was to pass, it wasn't so that you would have the responsibility of taking care of all the children. It was so that you could spend your life waiting for Scott. Scott comes into your world. You spend 5 beautiful years together. Scott ends up leaving and then continues to come back to you, deliberately speaking through you so that you can help raise consciousness however possible as part of a pre-incarnation plan for humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And really at this point, it's just a matter of, I mean, it's something you're going to endeavor. It's just a matter of how you navigate it and how it all unfolds and how you feel about it. And the other thing that will make it easier is you'll find community with those that are really intrigued by what you're doing and will be really supportive and loving, and that will create an atmosphere that will be easier for you to keep stepping into it.
That's what he's saying that I need to do, that I need to find that community.
Yeah.
And he said, I've already showed you some places to go, so you know how to do that. It's just a matter of me being willing to do that.
Yeah, I'll share our discussion. I'll share our discussion on my channel there, and people will end up entering into the comments, and you'll be able to communicate with them. You'll see my channel's small. It's actually it's a beautiful community, but we're still under 1,000 people. But it's growing all the time, and each video gets a few hundred views. You only need a couple people that you can have that will have similar experiences, that will ask to be in touch with you and help support you as you move along. That's really, at this stage, it's all you need. And because you have Scott, you can have me, and you'll step by step, one foot in front of the other, you'll just start to move through it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He said that's exactly what I was looking for, he said. For
Yeah.
you.
Well, which is perfect, because like I said, he wants you to be held and safe and looked cared for.
Mm-hmm.
And so insofar as your next steps, we're going to continue to invoke discipline around your nutrition.
Right.
You can choose the meditation that works for you. Not all meditations are the same. And so sometimes you have to fumble through a few different types of meditation until you get there. But you can also find yourself just very quiet. You're looking to quiet the mind insofar as you're sitting in nature and the thoughts are going by, as opposed to the thoughts are consuming you. You're just watching. You're like, oh, that's a moment of insecurity, or I'm worrying about, work, or whatever it is. You're just watching the thoughts. You're watching the thoughts. And as you become more the observer of the thoughts, then you're less compelled by them. And then finally, step by step, you're going to work with Scott, and you're going to say, okay, let's go further, and let's go a little bit further, and let's go further. And at some point, you get quiet enough of the mind that Scott can communicate through you, and then you'll start to broaden your platform, and you'll start to share some of this wisdom with the world, which is what he desires.
Right.
Your whole screen just lit up.
I know. I got the sun coming in.
Got the morning sun. It's Scott influencing.
Right.
Scott influencing the view. Yeah, that's what will happen, and it'll be the most spectacular. And here's the beauty of it, is that because it's a pre-incarnation plan, it will get easier for you as you go further down that space. That which is a pre-incarnation plan, you know it because it gives you energy and excitement, and you look forward to it. if it's off the path, it's like slogging through mud. It gets harder and heavier. People spend their whole lives misaligned, and they don't know why they're just always battling each and every day to get out of bed or to get to work or with their, whatever, their relationships and so on and so forth. It's because they're so misaligned, and they're wasting an incarnation on events that aren't really helping them grow. In the context of Scott telling you that his heart attack was a pre-incarnation plan, and that you being the conduit for him to bring forth whatever it is that he desires to share to raise the collective consciousness, it's going to get easier for you, and the right people will come to support you.
Right.
And your life will look very different in the years that come, and you'll love it.
I know, right. Oh, it's true. And it does, because it did. It was really amazing. And then it kind of felt like I was in mud. And I'm like, what's going on? What's wrong? He said, that's to give you an opportunity to slow down and decide if this is really what you want.
Because it's always with free choice that governs the entire arrangement. You guys made an agreement prior to incarnating, but while incarnate, you still have the choice. Your life would not necessarily be as fulfilled going down a different path as it would going down this path, but you're still granted the choice.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah?
Yep.
Oh, give Scott my love.
He says, "Son, thank you very much. You did what you were supposed to," he said.
So, spoken like a practical Libra. All right, my dear. I'll ping you if you're, and we'll get this, like I said, we'll get it up on the channel at some point over the next couple months, and give you, I've got a few that are going to get released. There's actually the next one that you'll see. You're on my YouTube channel?
No, I'm not. I'll do that right now.
I'll find it. The next one that's coming out is a woman who's also, her daughters are feeling spirit. We're trying to figure out what's going on in her life. There's a few people that are coming together. Like I said, it's a slow but beautiful community. It's slowly growing, but beautiful community that's coming together. And it's all people like you and I that are just kind of navigating our way through a more profoundly spiritual life.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Sounds good. He goes, your head's going a million miles a minute, he said.
No, that's going to be the hardest part in your journey. The food discipline, I think you'll be able to get a handle on. Quieting the mind will take some time.
Well, but we really worked on slowing down those thoughts.
It's great. The slower the thoughts, and actually the greater the separation between the thought and the response or reaction to it, if you can start to truly observe the thoughts, the easier it will be for Scott to come through and his messages to be heard cleanly. For you to be a really effective channel, you need an incredibly high level of accuracy. The world will stop paying attention if one day you say something, then the next day you say something else and you're contradicting yourself. You really have to get to a level of accuracy so that there's a confidence by the consumer in what it is that you're sharing. It helps.
Right.
It helps. Just as you probably lose interest in people that are contradicting themselves or unpredictable, right? You want to develop a level of connectedness with spirit so that it's coming through really cleanly and consistently.
Yep. Okay. We can do that.
You can do it.
Great.
All right, darling. Have a beautiful day.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Okay.
Right.
And I'll get on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, see some of the others. Like I said, it's a week or two from now. The next one that gets posted, you'll have a real appreciation for what, and we're just starting out. Her daughter's communicating with an 8-year-old and his 3-year-old sister who are in spirit. And her daughter literally can see the little girl.
Really?
But her daughter's only 9 or her daughter's 10. So we're just trying to navigate kind of the implications of having such an incredible gift at such an early age. Yeah, if you want, read the Edgar Casey autobiography.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, you'll get a sense of somebody who had the most.
Started that.
Yeah, it's a profound. I'll have to explain that. It's very different from what you're experiencing, but it gives an indication of what's possible in an extreme case where somebody's life is dedicated as a channel to raise consciousness and to heal the planet. That he was a sleeping psychic. He had to actually close his eyes, and then he would leave his physical body and be a pure channel. It's not what you and Scott are endeavoring, not at this stage anyways.
Not now.
You may at some point evolve to be that profound where Scott can just talk right through you uninhibited. You minimize the distortions, but for now it sounds like you're just working on quieting the human mind.
Mm-hmm.
I'll explain all that to you as you progress, but give this the next couple months just to start digesting what we've talked about here and implementing a little bit more discipline.
Right.
And take it from there.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, darling.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. Have a beautiful day.
You too.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Scott.
He says bye.